Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of Album Musings. So we're looking at another album from November. This particular album is No Secrets by Carly Simon. It came out on November the 28th, 1972. So this video, just for reference, is going out on the 23rd of November 2022. So we have a 50-year-old album here. So I'm going to do what I normally do, like slice and dice this up through the perspective of the UK charts in terms of where it placed on the album charts, what singles were released, where they're placed, and a little bit of, I don't know, popular culture reference. But, well, basically I'm going to be talking about the contents of the lyrics to You're So Vain, which was one of the singles. So, what does it say here? So we've got No Secrets is the third studio album by American singer-songwriter Carly Simon, released on Elektra Records on November 28th, 1972. 35 minutes, 58 seconds long. It was a major commercial breakthrough. It spent 5 weeks at number 1 on the US Billboard chart and quickly went gold, as did its lead single You're So Vain, which remained number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart for 3 weeks and the Adult Contemporary chart for 2 weeks. The second single off of it reached number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 4 on the Adult Contemporary chart. Certified platinum by the RIAA. This is the album was certified platinum. And the album was certified gold by the British Phonographic Industry on November 11th, 2011. Now, one of the interesting things, and I know I've spoken in the past about the differences between the certification systems and how platinum in one region isn't the same as another, but something that I'd not really thought through concerning certifications until I started reading through Chuck Cloisterman's recent book, The 90s, and he made a really important point in that about when CDs came in, a lot of people rebought albums they'd previously bought on vinyl on CD sufficiently in sufficient quantities that, of course, a number of artists whose albums were super popular had their certification boosted by people that rebought the album a second time. And I'd not really thought about certifications and the fact that obviously I was aware that people were rebuying in different formats because it's something I've done over the years. But I hadn't, until recently linked the two up, obviously. And yeah, it makes perfect sense. So it is quite interesting to see how certification changes over time for specific albums as the format by which we listen to music changes. So I'm going to link to this in the description, the actual Carly Simon Wikipedia entry, because Carly Simon has been active since 1963. So I'm not going to dive deep into the whole back catalogue of Carly Simon because this episode is purely about one album in particular. But I will include a link if it's an artist that you don't know that much about, and so therefore you can research it as you feel like researching it in terms of how it relates to other albums in Carly Simon's career and Carly Simon's career generally. But as I always do, I will do just here, you can quickly see an overview of where it's placed in terms of studio albums. Just on a timeline there. So most recent album was 2009. You can see there's been another number of non-studio albums, however you want to refer to them as. And obviously a fair share of compilation albums. No doubt, I suspect there's a number of other compilation albums which aren't necessarily listed here, as you often find with a number of artists. There's the track listing, so 10 tracks. What's the longest track here? What's that, 4 minutes 17? You're So Vain. And we'll be talking about that in a moment. Personnel on the album. Obviously, you can see here Carly Simon plays a number of instruments, but obviously we've got other musicians augmenting certain tracks. Yeah, we can see there's been actually there are a number of different drummers on different tracks there. And then of course down here you can see a lot of the orchestration stuff and the horn section and strings, saxophone, and all the backing vocalists. Yeah, Mick Jagger provided backing vocals on You're So Vain, although it was uncredited. But you can see other artists here. We've got James Taylor, who Carly Simon was married to. And let me just, actually no, I will, so I'm just jumping around here. It'll be on this one. So 72 to 83. So yeah. And the album, as we saw, which I've now accidentally shut down. Oh dear. There we go. 72. So. 2004, inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame for You're So Vain. It was nominated actually for a number of different awards in 74 as well. And then the weekly charts as well. So you know I always like to have a quick look and see where it ranks on the Album of the Year popularity score, and it's top of the list. And it looks like, well, apart from this one from 87, that list, the top of it is mainly her 70s output. So on the UK charts database, you can see here, I'll look at albums first and I'll switch over to singles. So as an artist, she's had one UK top 10, no number one albums on the UK charts. 5 in the top 40, 7 in the top 75. No weeks at number one, funnily enough, for albums. We'll see how that compares to singles in a moment. 4 weeks on in the top 10, 47 weeks in the top 40, and 69 weeks in the top 75. So I'm just going to scroll down and look at, as we look at the albums. So here's No Secrets. You can see highest position, number 3 on the UK charts, UK album charts. Was on there for 28 weeks, and that's the best showing of all of her albums. So didn't have any albums on the charts prior to that, at least in the UK anyway. In terms of singles, just again try and place this. So you can see, I suppose the stats are, with the weeks on the top 40 are slightly worse for singles. Sorry, slightly better for singles. Yeah, so looks like her singles stats are better than the album stats. And the first single to get on the UK charts was You're So Vain. Got to number 3 weeks, 15 weeks on the charts. Second single from the album, The Right Thing to Do, got to number 17, 9 weeks on the charts at that time, or overall. So let's look at the album stats for No Secrets. So you can see quite a long run, or that run occurred in 73, and then it's been on the charts again a couple of more times in 73. And then this interesting occurrence in 2017 is on the charts again, but not as well, obviously. You can see here, if we just expand that out, yeah, got into the top 100 for a couple of weeks. So with this album, definitely something, the best run in the UK charts was after its initial release. And the reason why I bring that up is because we've seen with other albums, some other albums have like pulsed. They've been in and out several times on the UK charts. So it actually got to its highest position twice. It got to number 3, went down, went back up again, and then slowly out, got to number 32 and then bounced out. Of course, I'm not sure. It's always difficult to tell with this whether at that point they were collecting data for a top 100 or not. I mean, I'm assuming it's difficult to know, because the fact that these are the same indicates that once it got out of the top 75, it just completely bounced out of the charts, or that there was no top 100 and they're just transposing the figures across. Although, saying, oh no, because this is a separate run here. So that is a separate run. So this was the week that it got on the charts. The other albums, the week that it got to its highest position of number 3. So you can see here what else was out. Cat Stevens, Slade by Slade, Gilbert O'Sullivan. So there's several accomplished singer-songwriters here as well. And I'm just trying to see if there's anything else predominantly. Interesting Heartbreaker by Free was around that time, and Made in Japan by Deep Purple. Focus as well. So there's actually quite a lot of harder rock bands on the charts around the time that came out. Moving on to the singles, so here's You're So Vain. Came out, or was released on November the 8th, 1972. And subsequently, you can see it's got various accolades. So when it came out, it reached number 1 in the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Ranked number 92 on Billboard's Greatest Songs of All Time. 216 on the RIAA's Songs of the Century. And in August 2014, the UK's official chart company crowned it the ultimate song of the 1970s. Ranked 495 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. And we'll talk a little bit about the person or persons, because there's more than one person here, in terms of who it's aimed at. I'll bring up a little article about it at the end. So there we can see. So it was a bit of a slow roll into the UK singles charts. Got to number 3 and then rolled back out again. Again, yeah, some question as to whether when it was out there was only just a top 75 maybe. And you can see it's been re-released a couple of times. Once here, I don't know if this was a remix or not, and then as a live version. Didn't do quite so well either time. Well, just scraped the top 100 here. So what else was it alongside on that initial peak position on number 3? So I think you can see here a lot of glam in the singles charts at the time. A lot of glam. Free did have Wishing Well, which was the single off of Heartbreaker. We got Wizard, Status Quo. So, you know, singles by some of the bands that we saw in the albums charts around the same time the album's released. But, you know, as a lot of people know, particularly if you, like me, you know, grew up on heavier rock, often hard rock bands did better in the album charts than they ever did releasing singles. You know, the exceptions were bands like Status Quo, who had a heavy singles presence in the 70s, and of course David Bowie through various aspects of his career, because of course he changed genres quite a bit over the years. ELO as well around that time. That must have been off of an early album. The Osmonds were kicking around with Crazy Horses, and that album was pretty heavy at the time as well. And Focus as well. You can see, got The Who, Thin Lizzy, Whiskey in the Jar. And Hocus Pocus by Focus. So then the second single, which is The Right Thing to Do, released in March 1973. Number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 4 on the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart, number 20 in Canada on the single charts, and number 9 on the Canadian Adult Contemporary chart. It reached number 17 in the UK. So you can see, got to number 17. Another slow roll into the charts. Bounced right out again. So this time round, yeah, still a lot of glam here. Got Bowie again, Alice Cooper, Geordie. So yeah, Geordie, of course. Brian Johnson from AC/DC fronted them at one time. I'm not sure if it was around the time that they were in the charts or not. Can't remember. I did listen to a really interesting interview with him on Raconteurs, which is a podcast, and he spoke quite a bit about that on that quite a bit on that podcast about the early days of Geordie and the transition from Geordie to AC/DC. You can see, interestingly, Geordie were actually on EMI. Bit of Judge Dredd here. Bit of Scar. I think, little Jimmy Osmond with Tweedledee. There's Carly Simon. Another Status Quo single, Mud. I remember them. And Roxy Music as well, and Nazareth. So yeah, definitely all this was going against a backdrop of glam in the UK singles charts at the time. So to close off the episode, I'm just going to talk a little bit about You're So Vain, because I think when people think about Carly Simon, this is the song that springs to their head and all the story around it. So I'll read this out. It's pretty short actually, so it's doable. So for 44 years, the subject of You're So Vain has remained one of pop music's most enduring mysteries. But at long last, Carly Simon has solved the mystery well, sort of. The singer-songwriter tells people that the second verse of a famous song refers to none other than Warren Beatty. I have confirmed that the second verse is Warren, she tells people in an interview pegged to her much-anticipated memoir, Boys in the Trees, to be released later this month. Does Beatty know that the seminal role he plays in the song? So he does. Beatty know about the seminal role he plays in the song. In keeping with its theme, Warren thinks the whole thing is about him, says Simon, which I thought was quite funny. The mother and granddaughter, who still resides in the same Martha's Vineyard home she shared with her former husband James Taylor, explains that the other verses referred to two other men, and she still isn't naming names. Will she ever? I don't think so, she says, at least until they know it's about them. Yeah, there's been a number of people that have been associated with that. And it goes on to say she could, of course, tell them at any time. For the record, she's had romantic dalliances with Mick Jagger, Chris Christopherson, Jack Nicholson and Cat Stevens. And as I mentioned earlier, Mick Jagger actually sung on the song. Probably if I was sitting over a dinner and I said, remember that time you walked into the party, and she says, I don't know if I'll do it. I never thought I would admit that it was more than one person. The second verse of the song gives some insight into her time with Beatty. So this is the one that she has confirmed. You had me several years ago when I was still quite naive. Well, you said that we made such a pretty pair and that you would never leave. But you gave away the things you loved, and one of them was me. I had some dreams, they were clouds in my coffee, and we'll have a look how that fits in with the song in a moment. Having kept the secret for so long, Simon says she's stuck by how interest in the song's inspiration has endured. Why do they want to know, she muses. It's so crazy. I was trying to look at when this article was published. Oh, here we go. So that was way back in 2015. I don't know if she's said more since then. I don't think so. And here's the lyrics. I think this bit at the moment of the Son of a Gun is said fairly low in the song's mix. Foolishly, because I've listened to this song so many times, and I know it's there, but I've not listened to it recently, and not before doing this episode, which maybe I should, but these episodes are more really sort of musing about how albums fit into the spirit of the time on the UK charts, rather than necessarily me talking about the musical aspects of the particular song in question. So I don't always tend to listen to the album again before I do this, because it is more of a statistical and popular culture analysis, really. But that's at the very, very start of the song. And I did look this up because this word, if you're not familiar with it, so you had one eye in the mirror and you watch yourself gavotte. So gavotte is a French dance. It's a folk dance. So basically the the subject, whoever the subject in this verse is. And as we've seen, there's 3 different people, so maybe it's a verse for each person. Yeah, so they obviously love the mirror. And also, interestingly, I like it here how the verse, it looks like there's always and. So the verse finishes and then it goes, and you're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. So we go into the chorus. And we get the second verse. And here we have another and again. So this is the one about Warren Beatty. And then it goes into you're so vain again. And then with the third chorus. Oh, what's interesting here. Yeah, sorry. So we get this partial chorus here after the second word. It's like half of the second chorus is repeated. Sorry. It's all right. Half of the second verse is repeated. So it seems like a chorus. So you get this sort of aggregate here of the chorus here, so or an echo of what this is saying, and then tacked on is this part of the verse, and then it goes back into another chorus, and then this one's repeated. So you're getting these interesting aggregate choruses. And then there's the third verse about going to Saratoga and their horse winning. So we know they're a horse owner. And they have a Learjet up to Nova Scotia to see a total eclipse of the sun. And then this continuation about them having, I suppose, fantasies. Oh no, yeah, I don't know, it doesn't literally mean that they have a friend that's an underworld spy, or they think they have. Or with the wife of a close friend. And then we go back into multiple iterations of the chorus. Now you can see, you can sort of pull it apart a bit, you know, if you know, well, this one's about BT, and then it's okay, who might this be about? And I mentioned about the Gavot as well. So there we go. So a little bit there about reflections on Carly Simon's album. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, because of course she did do the theme "Nobody Does It Better" for James Bond: The Spy Who Loved Me, which was from '77. So that was several years after the '74 album that we've been talking about, which is No Secrets. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next episode.